Herodotus, the Greek historian, reported that the ancient Persians tended to deliberate on important matters while they were drunk. Then they would reconsider their decisions the following day when they were sober. If it happened that their first deliberation took place when they were sober, then they would reconsider the matter under the influence of wine. Say I fucked up again. If a decision was upheld both drunk and sober, the decision held. If not, the Persians set it aside. My name is Willows.
And my name is Tyler.
And we're both young business guys who still adhere to these ancient traditions. I haven't even started drinking yet. Join us as we debate and discuss business topics, moves we're making, politics, and more, both sober and then drunk, to see if we come to the same conclusions. This is Alcohol Beyond This Point.
After much delays and deliberation.
We got delayed a little bit, yeah. We're supposed to start filming or recording at 3. It is now 6.
Yeah, and if you hear us sucking air, it's because we just ate some really hot chips.
Yeah.
So, Willows, what are we drinking today?
Today we got a few, our centerpiece, as it were, is this bottle of limited edition Crown Royal. Best Canadian whiskey in Canada. Probably the best whiskey, one of the best in the world. It's actually the highest selling Canadian whiskey in America, Crown Royal.
And we've both been there.
Yeah. They actually distill it in Gimli, Manitoba, about an hour north of where we are.
Thanks, Ben, by the way.
Yeah, this was
a birthday present. This
is a birthday gift for Tyler. His birthday was last weekend. And then we got a handful of some beers and ciders. So we'll start on this side. We got a wit beer by a company called Barnhammer, Le Sneak Belgique. We got a watermelon Summersby cider that I definitely thought was a rhubarb one when I bought it, but because the can is exactly the same color, but watermelon cider. We got another one of these crafty rattlers. I was trying not to double up on beer, but I was really craving one of these, so I introduced that last episode. We got I bought this right on the way out. It's made by Fort Garry. It's called Middle Province, so it's a collab with that Middle Province, North Flag, that clothing company, that you see in the Middle Province.
No, I haven't.
Really?
No.
Okay. They're a small Middle Province, so it's like Manitoba is the Middle Province, right? So.
Fair enough.
Anyway, so got that just to try it out. We got a Rockstar vodka, obviously, because
tired.
Tyler grabbed one, and we are tired. And this is Innocent Gun, their lager, brewed with naked golden oats, which
it's better than normal.
That is better than normal.
Everything's better naked. Yeah. Innocent Gun is a personal favorite of mine. I prefer their rum finish beer, but they do not can it, and it's expensive. Usually, I don't know. I just got this one. Great small batch brew. So that's what we're drinking today. I'm gonna crack this Radler to start off. And I guess you're pouring some whiskey before the ice melts. So
topics today. That's the spicy ghost pepper chips. Okay.
Yes. So I think this podcast in general is going to be a long-form podcast answering a question, and then we have, what do you call it? The affirmative and the
negative is the opposite.
Yeah, the affirmative and the negative. I'm overthinking this. Okay. Yes, the affirmative and the negative, and as you'll notice, neither of us are very good at committing to an opinion, so we're going to flip-flop constantly. So, argue with ourselves.
Well, see, I like arguing with ourselves. Like, I like exploring. We talked briefly about being ENTPs last episode. Great cut there.
Coca-Cola.
We talked a little bit about our personality type, which is nicknamed the debater. And literally, it said in there, they like to just debate from both sides of an argument. Even I do it all the time. Argue shit I don't believe in, just to kind of, that's how you understand a topic. Is you look at both sides, you argue both sides.
I actually didn't remember that or realize that about the ENTP personality. But hey, that makes this perfect for podcasting.
Well, that's what they do with debate class, right?
Yeah.
They'll just decide to a thing, and someone has to argue for, and someone has to argue against. You don't necessarily believe it, but that's the...
Cheers.
Yeah, cheers.
So it begins. First of many.
Anyway, so tell us what the topic is today.
So this came up because I conducted a job interview this week, and I don't know, was just kind of ruminating on it as I was driving. And I commute 2.5 hours every day. Great thinking time. But the question is, can you judge somebody by who they were or what they did 3 years ago? And the reason I say 3 years is because it's far enough away that it feels like a long time, but it's also not so long of a time that it's irrelevant. You know, it's just a time frame that makes sense. And I think of myself 3 years ago, and here's the flip side of the question immediately is, do you feel that you can be fairly judged by how you were 3 years ago? That's probably the better way to frame it. Okay. You can see it, you can look at it outwardly, you can look at it inwardly.
And I guess by extension, we're kind of asking, do people change?
Right. It's a very loaded question, and I was thinking about it on the way here. It goes in many different directions. I don't think there's going to be much lack of stuff to argue about.
So, off the top, like without thinking about it,
mm-hmm.
I say yes. You can judge somebody. You should judge someone accurately. Okay, you should judge and you can judge someone accurately over something you did 3 years ago. I think, yeah, it is complicated. I think more or less people stay the same. They make improvements, and obviously there's outliers in every situation, right? But how many people do you know have major life-changing, personality-wise, like events that happen in their lives, like
within that short period?
That short period, especially. Even, but fucking, for all the people that you can give examples of, like, oh, they, this guy, whatever, almost died and then changed and whatever, blah, blah, blah. It's like, yeah, but how many examples can you give that don't do that?
Right. What comes to mind for me is you think back to your high school graduating class, and now you see them in their lives they live today. Can you say, oh yeah, I could have seen that earlier, or that makes sense? Or how many people completely surprise you, right? People, I think the tendency is to believe, oh yeah, I like retroactively, oh yeah, I can totally see that, based on how he was, this is how he is today. Looking backwards, like, you're a pretty good judge of character. He always was this way. Oh, I knew it. I knew that about him. Not surprised at all. But when asked to actually
look 3 years in the future,
predict how someone would behave, you're probably going to be completely fucking wrong.
That's interesting. Well, I guess in hindsight's 20/20, right? They always say is that.
I wish it was. Memory is about as reliable as a fortune teller.
Okay.
Like, that's a subject for another time. But honestly, don't trust your memory either, right? And and see, this is why this is a loaded question, because how do you judge someone based on how they were 3 years ago? How clear is your memory 3 years ago? How clearly did you see yourself? How clearly did you see them? Do you have like some off rumor? Maybe you know something about this person that it's actually a fact about somebody else.
Yeah.
So, anyways, it's very loaded.
So
context is important. Let's talk context. When is this question even asked?
I would say what comes to mind, two things come to mind right when I think about it. Job interview, you just got out of jail.
Yeah.
You've been rehabilitated, but you did armed robbery. You went to whatever, right? That is one of the first things that comes up. Another one, I probably won't say his name, but we are having a provincial election right now, and one of the candidates has been convicted of domestic violence. Like convicted, like not just charged. Like it wasn't just allegations. Like he was convicted in a court of law for beating his wife. This is more than 3 years ago. I think this is like 20 years ago. But a lot of people, when the opposition brings that up, a lot of his defenders say, well, he's changed. He's not the same person. People make mistakes. He's atoned for it, etc.
Right.
But I don't think I said in good conscience I don't want to vote. I can't vote for him.
Right. Because if someone is capable of that,
What are they going to be capable of as my leader? Right. So that's and you know who I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, not that political leaders, historically, if you go back 200 plus years, have any semblance of a shining record when it comes to their treatment
Of course
women.
not. No, yeah, but so I guess like a good thing to look at, like if I look at my past 3 years ago, it wasn't exactly stellar, right? 3 years ago, how old was I? 20. Well, if we say 5 years ago,
Yeah.
When I was 18, 19, I was living in a trap house. I was doing drugs. I was sleeping around. I was, not being a very productive member of society. But now, right? But then, I don't know. It's hard to look at yourself, I guess, with an eye like that.
That's what I'm saying. Memory is about as trustworthy as a fortune teller.
Yeah. I guess, like, would you hire, like, you do hiring, I do hiring, would you hire someone who's been convicted of a crime?
On a regular basis, I do tenant screening.
Yeah.
And our tenant screening is exactly this. Maybe this is what kind of posed the question. Hiring somebody and putting someone in your house, to live there and take care of it. Honestly, very similar.
To hiring someone.
Yeah, very, very similar process. And we're in like some low-income housing, right?
Yeah.
A lot of it's government subsidized in high-risk neighborhoods. Call it what you want. It's the ghetto. A lot of ghetto housing, and you look at things a little bit differently. For example, primarily hasn't been evicted in the last 5 years, and if they have been evicted ever, why? If it was a divorce, I write it off.
Yeah.
Like if it comes in time with a divorce, I completely write it off. If it comes in time with a breakup, those types of things, you can pretty much write it off. But how do you know they're telling you the truth?
Yeah.
The short answer is you can look for trends, and we have 3 points of information. We have the character reference, we have the credit check, and then we have the evictions and criminal. So that is a total picture, and very rarely do I get somebody that checks on all three.
I guess context obviously matters.
Yeah.
Obviously, if they've been evicted 3 times because of non-payment every time.
Right. Well, it's almost always non-payment, but what's the circumstance?
Fair.
Was it my ex-husband was on the lease
and didn't pay,
and he left me with this rent I couldn't pay,
yeah.
And I left, and he left, and he got evicted, but my name was on the lease. It's stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay. But okay, let's say someone got evicted, like a tenant got evicted that you're doing a screening for something like not excusable, like got evicted for non-payment because they were just telling you to go fuck yourself, I can live here for whatever it is, right? But that happened 3 years ago, and they've been stellar ever since. Mm-hmm. What do you...
Then that would show stellar ever since, quote, would be...
Paying on time.
You go on their credit check, and you would see no missed payments for the last, let's say, 60 months.
But 3 years ago, with no context, was just refusing to pay rent because he didn't like you or something. Like, so, like something...
Yeah. That person would clear, because their trend is now paying on time.
Yeah.
If their criminal is clean and their job checks out, we would say yes.
Okay. But even if your screening process says yes, do you agree with saying yes to something like that?
Yeah. Even if the screening process says no, sometimes we'll say yes.
Okay.
I think.
Is there a situation where the screening process says yes, where you would personally say no?
Yeah. Okay. We had one the other day. That came down to, there's like a fifth. There's 4 elements. The references, credit, criminal, eviction. 5th reference is the actual listing agent that met them.
Sure.
Their opinion.
They have the interview, I guess.
Yeah, their opinion bears very heavily. So this girl, she checked out on all 4. Awesome. Going to a good school, good credit, has a job, income's good, everything's good. Shows up to the viewing, stoned. had, I don't know if she said it or showed it, but she had like over 3 ounces of weed on her. And
I don't know why you would say that to like someone
right,
showing you.
but she was stoned out of her mind, like couldn't put sentences together.
Okay.
But like stellar student,
Yeah.
good job, good credit, never been evicted.
When she got high on the weekend.
But yeah, but she showed up to a showing high.
Yeah.
Like I don't care if you get high, and like we're from Manitoba, so weed is not.
Well, marijuana's legal.
It's legal recreation. You can go down and buy it as easy as a beer.
Yeah.
So that part, I don't have a problem with it morally or ethically, but the fact that it's illegal and she's partaking in it,
yeah,
that's a different thing.
Yeah.
And then here's the nail in the coffin was when she's finished with the showing, she crossed the street to go hang out with her friends at this like known trap house where there was constant drug deals and parties. And we knew that because we had done a big renovation on the property and we just watched drug deals happen all day long.
Yeah.
So he's like, she knows these people in this trap house across the street. She's getting a big, beautiful apartment. She's here with her friend, getting a 2-bedroom, says it's for herself. She's going to party here.
Yeah.
That was the conclusion. And despite everything checking out, I just vetoed the decision and said no.
So on paper, it looked good, but then contextually, which is interesting, right?
Yeah.
Which is like, but I think like I'm the exact opposite. Where on paper I was a poor student, and my credit's really low because I've been running a business, right? But then contextualize that into real life, I'm actually good.
Oh, here's an interesting spin to that, to the conversation where you're going.
Yeah.
For people that hire people or people that get jobs, which pretty much covers everyone.
Essentially.
Except for you self-employed people out there. How much bearing does a resume have on somebody's capabilities? It's kind of the same question.
I say very little. I think you do as well.
I agree.
The hiring I've done mostly, I don't even look at a resume.
I like to look at it, but it's one piece of many, just like my screening.
Well, remember when we were interviewing people when we started the winery, when you were helping me? We were asking questions that the answer was irrelevant. It was how they approached the question.
What were those questions? Do you remember any of them?
There's a few of them. We had like 10. There, like, how would you define hard work?
Oh, yeah.
Is one of them. And depending on how they approach that question, like whether they're approaching it on a day-to-day basis, like what is hard in the moment, what is hard work over a lifetime, over a career, how they even approach the question tells you a lot more about their mindset than how they're answering it.
Yeah. I should remember that one.
There was a few of them. I can't remember anymore. But yeah, but like the whole point of that was kind of get people's mentality. And I guess like I like, or yeah, one of the ones I like is what's the most interesting thing we would learn about you that's not on your resume?
Yeah, that's a good one.
I like that one.
It's good to do right when you start.
Because how they think, what they think is interesting about them, or their abilities or whatever, tells me a lot about what they value.
Yeah.
Right? So, I don't know.
My favorite way to interview people, or my favorite interview questions, are when I'm digging for a certain answer. I found a thread and I'm kind of pulling at it. Yeah. And this is due to sales experience and whatever. But I'll ask the same question 3, 4, 5 different ways.
Yeah, I've heard that.
That's fun. Yeah. I did that in the last interview. And basically I had a feeling that this person, had the right personality, but some people interview well and can pitch and, just verbalize
what their ability are.
They can sell themselves really well. But some people are really equally good, but cannot sell themselves without you pulling it out of them.
Yeah.
So I had a feeling that she had the right stuff, but she wasn't saying it, and it was the interview was really falling flat, even though I knew there was something there, right? So I kept on asking the same question over and over and over again, and eventually it finally came out. I'm like, that's it. That's your underlying motivation. And it always comes back to, honestly, mommy or daddy issues. I hate to say it, but like, if you want to really understand when the going gets tough, how someone's going to behave and react, how they perceive their parents, and how they perceive their parents' successes or failures, their careers, feelings about business and money, that seems to have a big bearing on either people will be apathetic about it, or my parents are broke and they live an average life, and I just decided I didn't want to live an average life. Maybe it's as simple as that, or it's I have a rich father and he's been hard on me my entire life, and I hate what he does for his business. I want to be successful like him, but I don't want to have anything to do with him.
Okay.
That's kind of what she came down to.
Yeah.
Like, rich, successful man.
Yeah.
Biggest in town at what he did.
Yeah.
But she didn't want anything to do with the business. I'm like, that's pretty cool, because now she has a high bar to hit.
Yeah.
But she doesn't want to do it dependent on somebody else.
Yeah.
And when you get somebody who's got high aspirations but no dependencies, you have the right formula for someone that's going to bust their balls to get something done.
Okay.
So that was like what I kind of pulled out of her.
That's interesting. Second drink. I'm cracking this watermelon cider because I'm interested.
Going off the rails here for a question, but it'll all come back.
It's interesting. Summersby's a really artificially flavored. Like I'm not a huge Summersby fan, but it's like how I'm a fan of like Dr. Pepper.
I'm gonna say it's like a Pepsi of cider.
It's nice to have one every so often, but like I could not drink that every day. Like it's just so artificial tasting. But it's pretty good. It's all right. Watermelon. Yeah. Anyway, but I think like if you were to judge me off of If you were to judge me off of 3 years ago, you probably wouldn't let me live in your house.
Much less take my money and run with it.
Yeah.
But alas, you did.
Well, because I think like we were saying, I could sell myself in an interview where I don't hit the 3 boxes, but I can kill the interview. Right.
Yeah. Which counts for way more. That's how I got my first sales job.
Yeah.
I didn't have shit going for me. But I came through the interview so cocky, they're like, okay, this kid's got a chip on his shoulder, and he seems cocky, but either he's doing it on purpose, or he actually is.
Either way.
We're going to hire him and find out.
Yeah.
Because I'm sold.
Yeah.
So
what, selling cars?
Yeah. And then he came into my office after the first week, and he told me this. He's like, you know what, I hired you because you were cocky.
Yeah.
He's like, I thought you might be a problem. It was like 50-50. He's like, I'm happy to say, I don't think you're a problem. You just sold yourself.
Yeah.
A little overconfident. And I'm like, I sat back and like, oh shit. Well, that's good, I guess.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
I'm fully understanding what I did.
Works out. Yeah. Yeah. Well, do you think people change or have the ability to change? Well, I think anyone has the ability to change, obviously, but do you
I
think...
think anyone listening to this podcast, if you didn't believe in that, you wouldn't be listening to this goddamn podcast.
I don't know. I feel like...
You don't believe in self-improvement?
I think there's a difference between self-improvement and... Okay, like, for instance, I could get better at basketball, but I'm never going to be able to play in the NBA. There's this... I just not have the genetics and the physical prowess. Like, there's no level of improvement I could do that I could be an NBA player.
Okay, that's interesting.
So I can get better at basketball, but I'm never going to become an NBA player. Yeah. So I think someone can improve, like maybe someone who's, I don't know, like let me just, I don't know if I fully believe this, but I'll just lay it on the table. Like, someone who's a criminal can get better at obeying the law, but will never become not a criminal. If we're putting it the same way.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I don't know. I think, like, I mean, if you really want to get meta on the subject, which is where my mind always tends to go. I think when it comes down to making a judgment on somebody's character, I think it has more to do with your inner beliefs than it has to do with the actual person. So,
give an example.
The yardstick that you use for, the believability of someone's change, probably has a lot to do with how much you yourself have changed or commit to change, or how often you relapse back into old habits.
Because if I was a piece of shit and I'm still a piece of shit, then some other piece of shit gets better, and I'm like, well, he's still a piece of shit, obviously.
But you're like fronting a really good image.
Yeah.
But deep down, you haven't changed a lot.
Yeah.
And you see some guy who's got outwardly the same. Maybe he's actually changed. You're going to judge him by your own standard.
Because I think, although my habits have gotten better and I've improved myself, I don't know if that I've changed completely. I don't think I've ever changed my goals, my mindsets in, you know what I mean? I'm talking core, core at my very values at my very base. I don't think have changed at all.
Probably not. Not since I met you.
Yeah, which was about 3 years ago.
Yeah, to me, you're the same person you've always been.
Yeah, and obviously I've seen a lot of improvement and change in my behavior and, whatever, growth, I would say. But I don't know that I've ever actually... I've never, gone a 180. I guess, what would be a 180 for my life? I'm you know what? I don't get fulfilled by doing business anymore.
And you became a teacher.
Yeah, exactly. My parents, follow my father and become a teacher, right?
That would be a change.
That'd be completely 180. I've never done anything like that, right? Even if you look at high school, I knew I wanted to kind of do something like this. I just didn't know. And then at 18, I'm yeah, winery. Okay, let's do that. But that was a pivot. That wasn't a change of core value.
Yeah.
So I don't know if people, because I even know people that were drug addicted and got clean, but I think they were always good people at heart, kind of thing. They did shitty things because they were addicts, but then when they got clean, they don't do shitty things anymore. That was an improvement, but I don't think it was a whole core change. I don't think there's any
So can a man change his nature, or can he just change his actions?
Well, exactly. Exactly. Right. Can someone who's inclined to be a serial killer, or can they be rehabilitated and not want to kill people anymore?
No, they're just a serial killer that stopped killing.
Yeah. Right.
Quacks like a duck.
Yeah.
I see tendencies in myself that are identical to my father.
Yeah.
And that's very common, where traits, personalities, tendencies, business, career, whatever, typically tends to be genetic.
Yeah.
So nature versus circumstance. So is your nature fixed? Well, I addressed my nature in an entirely different way after observing how it treated his life. So I've got the same nature as him, completely different outcome in life, because I faced my nature head on and he didn't.
But I don't know that you.
But am I any better? When
Well,
push comes to shove.
Yeah. But when does push ever come to shove nowadays?
When you all the things that are working for you that are, the positive, don't.
Yeah.
Everyone has a rock bottom.
Of course.
And we're always fighting to get there, it seems. Okay, so
Try as I might,
I cannot seem to sink my company. I'm sure a lot of you can relate to that. So, I think one thing that I wanted to mention, as my personal advice to this question, which is my favorite way to answer a question is to kind of just disregard it and ask a different question. When it comes to judging people's character, I would simply just answer that with a question: why would you trust your own judgment at all?
My own judgment?
Right.
By judging somebody else?
Right.
Okay.
Why trust your own judgment at all? And is there value to trusting your judgment, or do you just set rules and punish those who break them, reward those who don't, and forget about your judgment?
I think there's a lot to be said about instinct and how you feel about an individual.
Yeah, I mean, there's like the reptilian gut feelings.
Yeah.
Of dangerous, not dangerous, death or survival. Yes.
Yeah. I wonder what, like, why was your person's judgment that, oh, this is going to be a trap house person, like, why was that judgment accurate?
Right.
Because it was substantiated by evidence, but you didn't know.
Yeah.
She may as well have been a, perfect tenant. You don't know.
Yeah, she could have been perfect.
Right? But it was substantiated by evidence, by history, and then you know that this becomes this. Like, that drug dealers equal partying equals trouble, etc.
Students equal
trouble.
Like a student that smokes weed and parties. Oh my God, how unexpected.
Yeah.
No, that's not. No, it's not the fact.
But I guess like you, based on previous experience, you can come to that conclusion.
Yeah.
Right.
And also, if that's what she presents at a quote interview situation.
What is it when she's at her worst?
Exactly.
Yeah. But you also have to contextualize, right? What if she was like, I just got fucking dumped the day before, I got high because I was sad, lost my job, or I guess then you'd be rejecting her for a different reason, but, like, you never know. Like, you never know why.
So that's why I asked the question, why trust your judgment at all? And see, this is how...
And I'm saying because based on evidence.
Right, based on evidence. But that's when evidence maybe contradicts a rule that you have. I don't do business with a person that does X.
But this guy's really nice.
Yeah, but regardless of how nice he is or how much you like him, you don't break that rule. Mm-hmm. So that's how I'm training my staff to screen people. Is there specific rules, and I say don't trust your judgment because these people will finesse you out of your fucking living.
Yeah.
Which is absolutely true. I had a woman fake a death in the family, cancer, a divorce, and a sick child, all to get out of rent.
Wow.
I didn't know people were capable of such.
Yeah, no kidding.
And not just that, but sustaining the lie by recruiting multiple people to participate.
Yeah.
Incredible, honestly. I have, the human mind has no bounds when it comes to saving a buck. Seriously. Yeah. And you're one of those people, too.
I have never faked
You're thrifty. You're thrifty.
I'm thrifty. I'm not a fucking...
You're not a liar, but you're thrifty.
To quote Tony Montana, all I have in this world is my word and my balls, and I don't break them for nobody.
Exactly. You have your set of rules, for example, the 10 crack commandments, which we talk about all the time. They are actually very good, sound business principles.
Yeah. Well, I was talking with my business partner one time about my little brother was doing stuff with drugs, and I don't want to get into it, but basically, I always say that drug dealing is the purest form of entrepreneurship. I think that's paraphrasing Gary Vaynerchuk. Because it's unregulated. There's no taxes, there's no nothing.
There's no power structure to rely on.
You literally just buy for low and sell for high. It's the most pure form of entrepreneurship, drug dealing. And
the mafia is. I've been watching a lot of Sopranos. Sorry.
So we talked about. I was disapproving of selling drugs, and he goes, "You always say that drug dealing is pure entrepreneurship," and then I immediately shot back. Yes, but I also say follow the 10 crack commandments.
Don't get high on your own supply.
Don't get high on your own supply. Never sell no crack where you rest at. I don't care if they want an ounce. Tell them bounce. There's that goddamn credit debit. You think a crackhead's paying you back? Shit, forget it. There are
some people quote scripture. Willows quotes rap.
I don't know my point. Oh yeah, no, I was saying like I have no problem with someone who is selling drugs, but I have problem with someone who like breaks the 10 crack commandments, right? So that
Yes.
so, like, see, right. So I don't have any problem with someone who
I don't have a problem with a student that smokes weed in parties, but I have a problem with one that's dumb enough to do it in front of listening region. That's it.
Well, okay, here's a good one too. Like in a job interview, right? If they were like, "Oh yeah, I got charged whatever for shoplifting or something like that, whatever," but I'll be like, "Why'd you get caught?" Like, do I want to hire someone that's dumb enough to get arrested for it? Like, I don't have a problem with the crime. Why did you? Like, how dumb are you?
Yeah, why weren't you better at it?
That's a hypothetical, but it's like
this podcast is hypothetical, by the way. None of this is real.
We are not real. How can we even be white where we don't even exist? But he's drinking water and I don't like it. That's making me uncomfortable.
It's because institutional wisdom states that I got hungover as hell last time, so.
Yeah. Go back and watch the last 20 minutes of the last episode. He was goddamn drunk.
I was blacked
out. I cut out a bunch of stuff where he was like zoning out and like
10 minutes of silence staring at a wall.
Yeah, it was bad, but
we'll do better today.
We'll see. But
the night is young and I'm still sipping.
I guess I guess at the end of the day, context is very important.
Very.
For everything. I think there's not very many.
But context is immediate. So here's an important point.
Okay.
When you're making a judgment on a person, you're saying context is important. Context is in the moment. Let's say maybe the context of their mistakes makes sense. But typically, look at people interpreting, the Bible or Scripture. It's usually done without context.
Yeah.
As most people's information on other people is.
Yeah.
So when you're making a snap decision on someone, what I like to do as an exercise, especially when it has anything to do with a major decision, concerning doing a deal, working with someone, like a business partnership, an interview, which I guess is like a partnership in a lot of ways, even dating someone, making a friend, like anything where you're kind of going into a new endeavor, suspend your disbelief for long enough to see what's in front of you.
Okay, give me an example.
I got one primed. So the current business that I'm in is with two guys who were both just in the infancy stages of wanting to do a business, in that completely ignorant stage, that cringy stage that none of us like to admit that we were in, and look down on people that are. And I was in the position of running the educational seminar of where these guys were going to get their first taste. And when you're in that complete reverse power situation where it's like you're the sucker buying, you kind of hold on to that opinion of that person. And this was in the real estate seminar, right?
Yeah.
So this guy came in, he bought the $1,000 course, didn't do a damn thing with it, and last conversation I had with him before I showed up to this meeting.
Because you're selling real estate investment courses at this point in time, for context.
Yeah, I wasn't when I met him.
Okay.
But then when I met him this next time was, year and a half later. No, 3 years later. It was 3 years later. Great time frame, right? Which is it's like that came from somewhere. He was now in a strong position and completely contradictory to the conversation I had 7 months earlier, which is not a long time, where I'm talking to this guy over, was it Instagram? And I'm like, how's business going, man? How are you doing? And he's like, I got 7 streams of income. And I know for a fact he still works a job. I see that and I literally laugh. I'm like, 7 streams of income and you work a job. You cannot, A, count your job as a stream of income, in the context of this
Of this conversation on business.
Also, an MLM doesn't count because how much are you getting paid? Not enough to quit your job. It's
Evidently.
like, break down all of these different streams of income for me, and like 7 are bullshit, 1 is your job.
Yeah.
So that was kind of that was my feeling towards this person.
Yeah.
But 7 months later, had a 7-figure business.
Yeah.
Absolutely killing it at everything that he touched.
Yeah.
Like prodigy level business. And I'm looking at it, and the only reason I was able to sit here and sit there and actually completely understand what they were saying and believe every word of it was A, because of the factor of legitimacy, where I was sitting in this big 7,000 square foot beautiful office that he paid for, or was because when I rolled up and I saw his truck outside, I'm like, oh, it's this guy.
Yeah.
I'm driving a piece of crap car. He's got a beautiful truck that's logoed. He's got an office. He's got all these things, and I'm sitting there looking down at him, and I just stare at the wall, and I just say to myself, I'm like, okay, suspend your disbelief for the remainder of this evening and just listen. And then that's how I walked into that situation. 12 hours later, we had a partnership forged. Like, it was probably the most profound, like, focused moment of my life where my own judgment of a person was so completely wrong that I had to literally just throw it out and then eat my pride and essentially work for him in the complete reversal of when we first met. I had to eat my ego and effectively just start this whole relationship over again. And it's very, I don't think, like, I don't need to, like, toot my own horn here, but I don't think a lot of people can do that.
You think
people become attached to their
idea of somebody,
to their judgments of someone, and they will try to reinforce that.
Yeah, you look for reasons why you think they're shitty, so you start looking for reasons why they're shitty, rather than looking for redeeming qualities.
Yeah, and so much, like, I live in a small town.
Yeah.
I even heard my mom talking about this the other day. Sorry, Mom. This one woman that was well known for sleeping around with tons of different men. And it's like, so be it, she enjoys sex. Great. And now she's, happily married. If you continue along the line of thinking, you would assume that she's probably cheating on her husband.
Yeah.
Or maybe they're this or that or the other thing, and they're still slutting it up around town, not just one at a time, but now they're together.
Yeah.
Like, that would be the assumption.
Yeah.
But the reality is, that was like a 5-year period of time.
Yeah.
Who's to say she's even remotely the same person?
So you're saying she changed?
Maybe she did.
Yeah. Well, I guess there's a lot of different layers of even context, right? There's a lot of different, there's like removing, because, well, at the end of the day, no one knows what you're doing in your life, pretty much, except you.
Right.
They don't know your intention of anything, for sure, right? And then a lot of people don't even know what anyone is doing, rather than yourself, right? No one's there every day, every second, right? But then there's people that kind of know you, and then there's people that know you a lot, and there's levels of context. I don't know what my point was, but
yes, I think to continue on my rant of suspending disbelief.
Yeah.
What I challenge anyone who listens, if anybody does, I don't care if you do, is this notion of how you treat other people or decide other people's fates or character or whatever, how you judge, I think has everything to do with the way that you treat yourself.
Okay.
If people judge severely,
yeah,
they probably have a lot of problems in their life that they haven't addressed.
Well, that's like you cast the first stone. What's that phrase from the Bible? You know what I mean? Like, it's if you have never sinned, like, then throw the first stone, or whatever that is, right?
If you want to condemn someone for this sin, he who is blameless cast the first stone.
Yeah, and no one is.
And no one throws the first stone.
Yeah. Exactly.
Also because Jesus is standing there.
Yeah, but, like, it's like, if you're judging people, if you have a bad context to people, then people are going to judge you poorly as well.
Yeah. So, my words of encouragement, if you're looking to make a change in your life, start a business, or maybe you started a business and you fell on your face and you humiliated yourself, lost your money, lost your family's money, whatever position you're in, you have to be able to suspend the disbelief in yourself, your own disbelief in your own abilities, long enough to see if you can actually do what you're trying to do.
Okay.
So,
well, I guess
right now I'm trying to do a new thing. Historically, every time I've tried to do a new thing, I haven't done it. So I have to push that out of my mind of what my expectation of myself long enough to actually give it a try.
And on the reverse side, that kind of goes into like sunk cost fallacy, where it's like, I've been doing this so long, I've committed so much, I may as well see it through.
Right, and people know me as the guy that does X. Why should I change?
Yeah.
Or I can not change and nobody will say boo.
Yeah.
Typically.
Yeah. Well, like sunk cost fallacies are used a lot in gambling, where you're down money, so you got to keep going back up until you're even at least.
Throw good money after bad.
Well, exactly, right?
Oh, that's like the daily struggle. Like I have to sit there sometimes and pitch to an investor as to why he should throw another $8,000 after the $30,000 that's made him no money.
Well, but in a lot of situations, you should cut your losses.
In a lot, yeah.
Yeah.
In most.
Yeah. Yeah, there's situations where...
When I sit there and I pitch a guy and I'm like, I know you threw in 30 and you lost your ass, but you didn't have me, is typically the pitch.
Yeah.
Which sounds narcissistic, but unfortunately...
Well, so is sales.
Sometimes it's true.
Sometimes it's true, yeah. Yeah. Someone asked me, I was sampling one of my wines the other day, and someone asked me if it was good. Is this good? And I look at them and I go, this is the best wine that's ever been made in the history of mankind. And they go, oh, okay. Bought a bottle. But,
yes.
I don't know.
And for context, half the time he'll say, he's like, I don't drink it. How would I know?
I'd never say that.
You'd say something of the like.
Why?
Sarcasm is a very effective tool because it can make someone crack.
People always ask me, well, especially when I'm at like farmers markets and they don't expect there to be alcohol there. They go, is this real wine?
Right.
I go, as opposed to fake wine? And that gets laughs like 90% of the time, where people are like, okay, they don't, and then they start framing, they think about what they just said. What did they just ask me? Is this real?
Yeah.
Yeah, like,
or are you allowed to sell this here?
And I always go,
Nobody stopped me yet.
Nobody's stopped me yet. Yeah, that's a good line. One time I accidentally said that to the organizer of the event. Well, they're like on the board.
Yeah.
That organizer, so she didn't have any knowledge of what was actually happening. But she's like, "Oh, you're allowed to sell this here?" And I'm like, "No one stopped me yet." And then she goes and talks to the coordinator. Coordinator comes over. She's like, "So, can you like show us your licenses and everything for this?" I'm like, "I can't." But
I didn't get one.
Yeah. Oops. No, I do everything legally. But
that actually was another question I had. You just dug it up.
Perfect. Because I was out of topics. So.
What was, for the people that don't know, the very first product that Shrugging Doctor sold? Exactly. Cringy.
Not a good product, yeah.
It was not a good product. It worked in the context of, 17 to 19.
I think I know where you're going. Is that...
What was your second product?
3 years ago. Can you still judge my current products off of 3 years ago?
Correct, but what I actually want to know, what was your second product after Sugar Line?
The mead.
Mead.
Yeah.
I actually was reading a book today, and it was talking about mead, and I thought
This is an interesting way to reframe this. So if you're not familiar, I own a winery. Make lots of different fruit wines, grape wine, sangria, mead, cider, different things like that. And my partner and I started this business on like $50 Canadian to basically buy some homebrew supplies. So starting a manufacturing operation where you need to float tens of thousands of dollars and you have $25 in the bank, a little bit tricky. So a lot of the first products we made, the first 3, 4, 6 months of the operation, were of lower quality because number one, we couldn't afford the equipment. We didn't have air conditioning. We couldn't, so it was fermenting too hot. So it was getting bad. I don't know the science behind it, but it was getting this bad flavors and stuff when it ferments too hot because we couldn't cool the building because we didn't have any fucking air conditioning.
You also didn't have the recipes. You didn't have the know-how.
Yeah, but that's besides the point. But we didn't have like the proper crushing equipment for the fruit. We didn't have any, we had to destem stuff by hand and like whatever. So blah 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 blah.
I missed that weekend.
Yeah, blah blah blah. Why didn't you help that weekend?
I think I was out of town or something. I think it was on.
I think that was when you were traveling.
Yeah, that's when I was traveling every week.
Yeah. Anyway, but so that's actually a really interesting way to reframe the question, because now I'm going to change my answer because I said people don't really
I've been thinking about
change. That's interesting. People don't really change, but my products are my products, every single one of them is so drastically different than it was 2.5 years ago when I opened.
Companies can change, can people? Because companies are just assemblies of people and output of their activity, right?
Yeah.
There's not much distinction.
That's really interesting.
You are always who you are today.
Yes.
Your output just wasn't there.
Correct. So was this company always what it was today? But
so if I'm a billionaire in 45 years or 7 years, was I always a billionaire? Or is there a certain point? You look at Jeff Bezos. People like that started a company on their home computer looking to put out value. Does he ever change? Or was he always that?
I think someone like that always has it in them.
Yeah.
Like,
there's some secret sauce there.
Self-awareness is really important, to know what you're good at and know what you're not.
So how do you judge products and companies?
Was the product good?
Right, which is the today, here, and now. Hyundai, horrible cars.
Yeah.
25 years ago, like you're lucky if you hit 100K without the thing blowing up.
Yeah.
But now, they're in the ring with the best cars in the world.
Yeah.
So why don't we afford people the same luxury?
That's interesting. Why? Because it's concrete. Tangible. Yeah, that's a good. Yeah. A good tasting product and a bad tasting product
Satisfies me or doesn't.
It's easy to tell. The car either breaks down or it doesn't, right? But people aren't so black and white.
If people judged Chevy by the Corvair,
the one that trapped people inside and burnt them to death.
It was essentially the most effective rolling death trap ever rolled.
The gas tank was right by the engine or something. Oh no, right by the bumper.
The gas tank was between the bumper and the axle, so if you got into a rear end collision, you're almost guaranteed an explosion.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. So if we don't drive Chevys anymore because of that,
right?
But we do.
That car was so bad it actually brought on modern era car safety.
Which I think something like that has to happen to make big changes, right? But they've changed, evidently, and people don't fault them for that anymore. Do you think? But I'm sure. Do you think Chevy sales on other models went down that same year?
I'm sure they took a hit.
Yeah.
Especially when the guy published the book. I forget what it's called. All about how dangerous the Corvair was.
So why don't we allow humans the same luxury? That's an interesting question.
Because I don't think we allow ourselves the same luxury.
What do you think? You've changed majorly in the last 3 years?
I like to think so. I feel like 6 months ago when I made a change, that's been my whole life. but I know that's not true.
Yeah. But I think, like, as far as I've known you, you've had pretty much the same mindset as far as
Right.
you've just found different outlets.
Yeah. But if you ask my mother, she's like, "You do something new every 3 months." And in reality, I've been doing the same thing the whole time.
Yeah, you just found a different outlet for the same thing.
Right. So output equals what people do.
Perception, though.
Right. So here's a meta tie back. We're sitting here recording a podcast, putting out our random ass thoughts. This is, if you're looking for like hard facts and intelligent reporting and synthesis of knowledge, this is
not the podcast.
This is an opinion piece. Get used to it.
Yeah.
If you're here for hard facts, go elsewhere. Go listen to NPR. So we're here putting out content long before we're, ready or accomplished. And we're doing this because we want to document our progression.
Yeah.
Right? And this week in particular, I've been getting a lot of, those Facebook reminders of, like, here's a post you made 5 years ago. Would you like to repost?
Yeah.
I think it was actually 3 to 5 years ago. I don't know. But a lot of my Facebook posts, like, every single day, I was, like, putting out some, like, little snippet of wisdom.
Yeah.
And I read it, and I'm like, it's a little cringy because I didn't know anything.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, I can read it and be like, okay, that's, like, some good shit.
Yeah.
I was regurgitating, a lot of, self-help stuff I was consuming at the time.
That was like fake it till you make it, though.
Right. But at the same time, like, I stopped doing that. I read a book at my business partner's request called The Millionaire Mindset. Honestly, cliched book. It was all basics, knowing what I know about entrepreneurs and why they write books and how they write them. This was like a very clear case of thumping my own chest.
Beer number 3.
But anyways, not very potent content in this book, but it really just hammered on the basics, which had its own value. And if you go into a book, especially saying, what can I get out of this? And you look for that and focus on it, great, you'll get something. And I did. But there wasn't a lot there. There wasn't anything new. And I think the basic principles that we're talking about today and in this podcast and these opinions we have and these values we hold, we don't have the output. We don't have the value produced to the world that we're going to have in 5 years from now.
Of course.
And, the quote, proof in the pudding. But how we think about life and ourselves and others today is going to make all of that happen. It's not, the guy that succeeded after 25 years in business, asking him, like, what do you think is the right way to do this and that and the other thing?
Yeah.
And what he tells you is post 25 years.
Yeah.
But that didn't get him shit.
At the time.
Period. What he says today didn't get him shit. What he said 20 years ago is what got him what he is today.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, you want to learn how to be, a liquor baron or a real estate billionaire, don't ask me when I'm 45 how to do it. Ask me right now.
Yeah.
Because what I say now is going to make the rest of it happen.
Yeah.
Which is why you document before you feel like you have anything to say.
Well, that's why the whole... Well, but then, like, I used to say when I was younger, say what they say, do what they do, you'll get what they get.
Which is true.
It's shit, though, because you'll never recreate 2019
That's true.
situation, you know what I mean? Like, and you're also not that person. You're also, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's...
If you succeed in your lobbying efforts of the government to change the regulations around liquor and stuff,
I'm changing the entire world forever, like, this entire province forever, so you'll never have to do what I did.
and you'll never have the opportunity to have what I have.
Yeah. Well, exactly, right? So, I do the same thing where I look back on my memories all the time. And, I used to post just cringy, like...
Yeah, but we have
quotes.
very much the same timeline.
Yeah.
How we did shit.
I used to post, like, a quote about whatever success, followed by, like, let's go or something, like hashtag whatever, right? And yeah, and I don't post anything like that. I even stopped talking about what I'm doing.
Yeah.
What I do is just post results. Like
even that I'm hesitant to.
Yeah, but people I don't need. I used to post like, oh man, I just had a big meeting. Like, stay tuned. I just did this. I have these plans. I don't tell shit about my plans anymore. What I like, there's a Jack Harlow song where he said, "We drop bombs, we don't make announcements." Like, that's pretty much like what I do. It's like, here's this now. Here's what I just did. Like, I released the newspaper interview. I released the. It's like, I don't. I try to tease less. I try to, because my results speak for themselves.
Yeah,
right?
You leave breadcrumbs instead of talking about making bread.
Yeah, but when I was posting, like 5 years ago, when I